And I wouldn't talk about a war between here and Plymouth either, because that would be really bad taste. I just wanted to say thank you to all the sponsors and all the partners that have come along with us on this journey. They've all given their time, resources, absolutely no cost to us or to you, which means that we can do this for free and really get behind it. So, thank you ever so much for them. I'm going to introduce you now to Rosie Hawkins, who represents Reed Hall, who again have kindly given us this amazing space tonight and all the hospitality. So if you could just give a warm welcome to Rosie. I'm bailing out, and enjoy the evening. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Welcome to Reed Hall. I am Rosie Hawkins. I'm the event sales manager here at Event Exeter. It really is fantastic to see so many local businesses here from Exeter. I'm a big champion of the city, Bovey Tracy, born and bred, and it always makes me really proud to see what we've got to offer as a city. As part of the university, Event Exeter is absolutely delighted to be involved in the X Factor initiative, and we're really, really pleased to be hosting this event, the first live initiative this evening. For those of you that aren't au fait with Event Exeter, we represent the array of venues that we've got across two campuses, and that spans two university campuses across the city, and that's everything from the old and stunning atmospheric Reed Hall that you're in this evening, right through to state-of-the-art lecture theatres. We really can cater for events of all sizes and shapes. We've put together an exclusive offer for anyone involved in the X Factor initiative tonight, so you can find more out about that this evening. But in the meantime, please do enjoy yourselves. Please do have a nosy around Reed Hall, find out what we're all about, get under the skin, and please do come and say hello to us and enjoy your evening. Thanks ever so much for coming. Cheers.
Thanks, Rosie. There's also a few conference rooms just past where the drinks were, so if you want to take a look at some of the facilities here, you're more than welcome to do that afterwards. I'd just like to welcome Karime, Hassan, the Exeter City CEO and Growth Director.
Well, first, can I say this is really timely, this event. I meet a lot of CEOs in the city, and what I would say is we have a great story, but we don't generally tell it. I think we're pretty modest in this part of Devon. And I think we need to recognise what is going on in the city. And I think what you got with the university and what you got with Exeter Chiefs are local institutions that really now are punching right up there with the best. Certainly with the university, the best in the best in the world, and the Chiefs best in the Premiership, and hopefully shortly best in Europe. So what is it that we need to say? Well, actually, if you look at the journey of the last decade, it has been really impressive. Since 2011, the last 5-6 years, the city has created 26,000 jobs. That's 80% of all the jobs that have been created in Somerset, Devon, Plymouth, and Exeter and Torbay have been created here at Exeter. And when you look to the future, productivity-wise, I think our expected rate of productivity is at least 3 times the rest of that region. If you look at what we do, we make a big difference by working in partnership, working in a very supportive way. And an example of that is what's recently opened up in the Queen Street Dining. If you look at Queen Street Dining, just won an award for what they've done. It's a partnership with the City Council, freeholders, with Aviva, private sector, and delivered with style. And no one has taken a view, it's competition. We shouldn't be supporting it. We've been the first to champion what it's going to bring to the city, even though we're working with Crown Estates to deliver a £100 million investment that's going to deliver a lot more restaurants and cafes as part of a leisure quarter on the bus and coach station side. We don't look at it in a way of competition. What we look at is, how does this city establish itself absolutely as the regional economic engine? And we're confident by getting the offer right, we will grow our catchment area. And that's what we've been all about for the last decade. We will deliver you in this city something that means our catchment draws from a greater area. And that's evident in our travel to work area. We now have the second strongest travel to work area in the country. It's only Cambridge that has a greater increase in daytime population than Exeter. And that's saying something. So this city, which is at the third highest growth in population last year, is punching really above its weight in terms of economic growth. And what's coming is very exciting. And you're going to hear from Glenn Woodcock of what he's doing with Exeter City Futures, which is a transformational initiative which we are really proud to be part of. But this city is going to go places. So from my point of view, it's very timely. I really appreciate the fact that the private sector are coming together. I think we will see a new kind of business profile than we've had in the past. And that's something that we are having to take sort of lessons for. We are ourselves looking at how we market the city, not just to the city council, but market the city to a national and international audience, because we really have got a clear sense of vision. I'm going to finish at this point. We want to make Exeter the global leading location in the world for applied environmental science. We want to make sure that world-class research translates into world-class private businesses, stimulating innovation, which gives us the jobs and the prosperity that we want. So this is very much part of it, showcasing what we're doing, and we will deliver. I am absolutely confident of that. Thank you.
Thanks, Karime. When Karime said he would speak at an event, I was really excited because he's got such a passion for the city, and it's really infectious, and I knew that everyone here would really appreciate that. Next, I've got Glenn Woodcock from Exeter City Futures to speak about his organisation.
Thanks, Llewellyn. Thanks, Karime. That's great to get that energy boost. In 1905, Albert Einstein wrote 4 papers. He wrote one on the photoelectric effect. He wrote one on Brownian motion. He wrote another one on special relativity. And he wrote another one on mass equivalence. It became known as Einstein's miraculous year. So I'm going to talk about my year, which is not a miraculous year, but it's been has been incredibly instructive. But there was another thing that I wanted to say about a quote that I wanted to start with from Einstein, and it's the 1 year message and this quote I want to focus on in the next few minutes. And the quote is, "We cannot solve our problems with the same thinking we used to create them." So 1 year ago, myself and Karime and Gary, CEO of Ashford's, stood on the stage in the cathedral room of the Royal Clarence Hotel, which is no longer there. So that is another kind of indication of how much can change in a year, and we have had such a dramatic year. And I made a claim, or not so much a claim as a challenge, that Exeter could be energy independent and congestion free in 10 years' time. And that's a year ago, so now we've got 9 years left. And I had a couple of slides. I've got no slides tonight. I had a couple of slides, and the main slide said that we were going to achieve this through a focus on capital, analytics, and leadership. That was my plan. I mean, whilst a sort of a focus on these 3 things sort of sounds feasible, I really didn't know what else we were going to do beyond that. I had some deals in mind that I thought that we might be able to do. And I kind of road tested my nascent ideas with some other business leaders that I knew, but it was total naivety to stand there and say those things in front of what was an incredible group of business leaders from the city. And if I knew then what I knew now, I'm not sure I'd have done it. But if I hadn't done it, I wouldn't know now what I know. So there we are. That's and life and my experience over the last year has been full of those kinds of Gordian knots. So leadership, vision, capital, analytics, what on earth does that mean? Well, one of the things I've learned this year is how important the interrelationship between to create a consistent and credible and deliverable vision for what could be a massive transformation for a city. One of the things we did was we started just by asking people in the street. We asked we asked thousands of people what was one thing that they would change in the city. And one of the things that you learn by going through an exercise like that is a kind of I mean, even in a great city like Exeter, there's a kind of a level of almost learned helplessness that we all have, which is, well, I'd like to have a really big vision, but I can't. I'm not allowed. You ask me that question, what can I have? Well, it would be nice to have cleaner streets, or it'd be nice to have a few extra bus services, or it'd be nice to have, being really ambitious, an ice rink. But nobody says, I want the city centre to be free of cars, clean, safe for kids to run around and walk to school. No one says that because they feel that it's not possible. So vision on its own can either seem naive, or it can be something which people don't feel that they have a right to have, or they feel like they are themselves being naive to have. So somehow, in order to energise vision, you've got to show that things are possible. And to show that things are possible, usually what people do is they say, well, where's the money? Where's the money going to come from? Who's going to give it to us? This is another aspect of, I hesitate to use the phrase, but I think it's really appropriate, is learned helplessness. If we're not going to get the money from somewhere else, then we can't do it. If government isn't going to give us the money to make this sort of change, then we can't do it. And Karime, he shows that this isn't true. It is possible. You can make changes. You can raise really serious amounts of money. We can create the kind of city that we want for ourselves. But the levers are hidden. Most people don't know what a strategic plan is for a city, or even that they exist. Most people haven't spent a lot of time talking to transport planners. Most people don't know how Stagecoach decide where their bus routes go. I almost made a joke then. I'm becoming more political. So where's the money? Where is the money going to come from? Now, as business people in this room, I guess most of us are, what we know is that if you do something useful, someone will give you some money for it. This is the basics of business. And useful means it's got some value. And value generally comes from changing the world so that it's better than it was previously. And this is the basics. Entrepreneurs know this intuitively. We've got a 17-year-old entrepreneur in the room today who's started his own business. I mean, often they're born, but sometimes we become entrepreneurs later in life. But we hunt out and we understand and we drive towards value, but that means things that other people want and need. Now, we've become a very marketing-oriented economy, and that means often focusing on things that you can generate a transaction for at the lowest possible effort. It means selling people things that rely often on their animalistic or intuitive responses to something, rather than to a more sapient, more intellectual approach to what kind of a world they want to live in. It's a harder sell, but it is a sell, and people will pay. We buy cars. Now, 100 years ago, people didn't think that cars would catch on. People didn't think that telephones would catch on, because we don't have them today. So there's a process that we have to go through, which is understanding how we can find value and work towards that value, which delivers a totally new way of living in our city. And the fact is we have to. because we had another 10,000 or 20,000 families in this region, in this catchment area, you're really going to notice it on the roads. But but here's the change, right? Here's the thing where it comes into analytics. Because business plans, usually what you do is you go and get some historical data. You're going to say, oh, well, some people did this in the past and it did this, and therefore I can do this. And, you're looking at a supply chain. You're saying supply chain works like this. There's this intermediary step, which is nuts. That guy's not adding any value. I think if I disintermediate this bit, I'll make some money, I'll take a headache away from that guy, everyone's happy except for the chap who's probably got to retire. And, and this is the way the business world works. But this is working on what you'd call incremental change, and business is brilliant at incremental change, turning the handle. If you want to do something that isn't incremental change, which is talking about creating a new vision for the future, you've got to do things which are much more challenging. You've got to create scenarios. You've got to draw pictures. You've got to model what the future is going to be like. And that's much tougher. But that is the world of analytics. And it's also the world, it's also the skill, the capability, which enables you to unlock large amounts of capital. Because within a city like Exeter, or any place where stuff gets built and stuff grows and stuff gets replaced, money changes hands for putting things on the ground. We spend loads of money on cars. So the role of analytics is to be able to paint those credible, scientifically driven stories which show how you can create new futures for a city like ours, but have them underpinned by real, credible evidence. So analytics is vitally important. It's the route to capital, it's the route to vision. If you can put all of those things together, then you have the tools for leadership, because you can't really start to say, I believe we can deliver your vision, unless you can bring all of those things together. So we live in a kind of a chicken and egg situation. And it's exacerbated by the fact that, we kind of, the way our world has worked up until now, and this is a result of multiple really powerful revolutions, is that everything's delivered in silos. So we have incredibly effective silos for delivering our energy infrastructure, for delivering transport, housing, health, and education. Those silos have grown in their own right and in their own worlds, and it's good in those silos. People know what they're doing. But we've got to the point where the capital within those silos is running out. So the health service in Devon will be in deficit very shortly. We're running out of cash to build decent housing. We're running out of land. We're running out of all of the assets that made it possible for those silos to work in isolation. And again, what I think and what I've discovered to be true over the last year is that analytics is the tool that you use to break down those silos. I'm not saying those silos are bad. I mean, they are the things that have taken us out of pre-industrial revolution poverty. They're incredibly important facets and aspects of our society. But as Einstein said, what got us here won't take us any further. But, so I started with this idea of energy independence and congestion free, but that's not really a vision, is it? I mean, that's not a vision for a city. And people often ask me, what is the vision? And whilst I'd say that any sensible vision of the future would be energy independent and would be congestion free, or I'd hope you agree with me on that, what we're really trying to do is build, what I'd like to do is to build the awareness and the capacity and to show people that we have the tools to deliver our vision. So to deliver a world that we all want to live in. So the last year's work for me has been getting to the point where I feel that we've uncovered enough of the levers and the tools and the mechanisms that we can use to credibly ask all of us what kind of a city do we want to live in 10, 20 or 30 years' time? What city do we want for our children? What life do we want them to have? What kinds of jobs do we want them to have? But to be able to ask those kinds of questions, this year, I hope, in a way that people will ask for the earth. They will ask for things that they think last year they would have thought were unachievable. Because let's not forget, the city of Exeter, on its own, just within the boundaries of the city of Exeter, is 120,000 people. So in a year, that's 120,000 people years of effort. The human capital of a place like this is gigantic, 250,000 people in the commute to work area. If, as a region, we can set the right challenges for ourselves, then perhaps we can even get ourselves working in a productive way, in a way that pays us to create the new city that we want to live in. And that's, I think, is how you kind of bind economics into that whole story. Another thing that people have asked me over the last year, and I've really struggled with this, is what can I do to help? Literally every time I speak to someone, that's the question that they ask me. And it's I have found that a very difficult question because I felt, well, I kind of kicked this whole thing off, so I should be able to answer that question. I should be able to say, okay, what you can do is this. But I mean, that's really not. It was not sensible to have that expectation of myself or of my team or anyone around me, because everyone out there in their own right runs their own businesses or works in their own businesses, or a teacher or an educationalist, and they are creative and they have their own visions of the world. And really, what we ought to be doing is turning that question around and saying, what can you do for Exeter? But that's not good enough in its own right, because there's something creative to be added. And so I've sort of ended up thinking that for me, it's about showing examples. And so for this year, what I'm hoping to do with Exeter City Futures is last year was the year of uncovering the levers. This year, I hope, is the year of showing examples. So in order to try and answer the question that I'm sure is in all of your heads, is what on earth does this mean to me? I'm going to just go through now a few examples that we've uncovered in Exeter over this last year. And each one of these, in some ways, embodies something of what I think the Exeter City Futures stands for. First is a recycling centre project. Now, I went on a tour of the recycling centre during last year, and it's owned by the City Council and makes something like £1 million revenue a year. And Exeter has about 40% recycling levels for the whole of its. It recycles about 40% of its recyclable materials, which actually is very low. The EU targets about 55%. It also turns out that recycling centre collects enormous amounts of data. Every time a truck goes out and comes back, it has data about everything that it's collected. And that data goes into a spreadsheet, and it sits there. And the reason for that is perfectly understandable. It's because the recycling centre is run by a very competent team, but they're not analysts. They're people who know how to run a recycling centre. Excuse me. So we thought about this for a bit, and we took that data, and one of our analysts tidied it up a bit, and then we took it to the Exeter Maths School, and we asked one of the students in the Exeter Maths School to analyse the recycling data. He's still working on it, by the way. But the plan after that is to create a map of Exeter, a real-time map of Exeter, which shows, broken down by ward, the recycling levels and the historical recycling levels in each of those wards, and take that map to each primary school in Exeter and ask those primary schools, say to them, what do you think you can do to improve the recycling rate in your ward? Because it's your parents who are doing the recycling, or perhaps it's you. That's quite an exciting project for those kids to work on, but it's also a very interesting thing for this student at the maths school to work on, because he's seeing how his analysis is being used in practice, but also those children are able to undertake an intervention in society for which they're going to get some measurable feedback. Here's the real kicker. When they do get some measurable feedback, and they show that they have made an improvement to the recycling levels, it has a revenue impact on the city council. So for every 1% improvement in recycling, that's £20,000 more revenue for the city council. What I think is that those primary school kids should do a revenue share deal with the city council. But what I'm trying to demonstrate there is actually, that's an example, but it's also a template. It's a way of enabling people to do things, and you can, and what we will be doing is we're going to do, my target for the team is to do that another 5 times. Not necessarily in recycling, but in something to do with health or something to do with transport. And we just kicked off the second project with Exeter College, Rob, and they're going to be working on energy usage within the Exeter College estate, and they're going to be working on travel to work plans for the Exeter College students. But they're all students who are business studies students, maths students, computer science students. They're working analytically to understand how what they can do in the city can add value to the city. So it's showing an example, setting a template, and it's showing an example to young people. The second example is a development project that we've done, or we're undertaking in Exeter, which is the redevelopment of St Margaret's School. And Karime very kindly is providing lots of encouragement to Heritage England for the plans that we've got for that. But basically, when we looked at the energy consumption of St Margaret's School, because it's a grade 2-star listed building, it was very hard to get it away from an EPC rating of G. You know, it's because the architraving and and the windows and the sashes and all the rest of it. But I mean, that's not really. And so we said, well, could we not take the architraving carefully off the wall, put in some insulation and put it back? And the answer is no, you can't touch it. And so it sort of felt like a bit of a nonsense. And eventually, but they came to our board with the proposal, and the answer was no, go back and do it again. And everyone became very creative. and this is, for me, this is still an analytical process, because it's saying what really is the objective? Is the objective just to make a return? No, it can't be. The objective's got to be make a return and make the world around us better. We've got to be proud of it. So eventually they came up with a bit of a trick, really, but they're all big rooms in this redevelopment. So they're going to build a box inside it, and they're going to reproduce perfectly all of the features in the room to the satisfaction of Heritage England, thus protecting the features underneath, but also enabling us to put in all of the services much more cheaply, and also insulate the building and get it up to an EPC rating of A. So it's creative, analytical, but we're using our business as a way of making a small change to Exeter. But that's what I mean by saying there's 120,000 people in Exeter and we all need to contribute. The third example most of these examples are examples that come from our effort, but as I say, this year is about trying to communicate those examples and asking other people to join in with them. The third example is what we're calling triple impact legal procurement, so try not to fall asleep, but I'm going to explain it. So we wanted to, how long have I got left? Feels like I've taken a long time, doesn't it? I can curtail the examples. 5? Okay. This is where our legal department said, oh, what can we do to help? Which is great. I didn't ask them to do this. Our general counsel came up and said, I've been thinking about all the stuff you've been working on, and I'd like to help. I thought, that's great. What are you going to do? And he said, well, we're going to re-let all of our legal contracts, and we're going to run a competition. We're going to ask the law firms to come up with the best possible offering, which most matches our strategy to reinvest in Exeter as a sustainable city. I thought, that's great. I wonder how that's going to go. And actually, every single firm in the city rose to the challenge. We were absolutely flabbergasted by the level of energy and imagination and effort that went into those tenders. And if they put that much effort into all their tenders, I imagine they would never sleep. But it was really heartwarming to see that, and I don't often say that about lawyers. So, but the winner, which was Mitchell Moores, and I hope they don't mind me saying this. I don't think we've been public about this yet, but so I'm probably breaking some sort of curfew. But I have a tradition of doing that when I speak. And the winner, this is really cool. The winner, their proposal was not only to review all of our leases, to review them on a sustainability footing, not only to review all of their own internal business processes on a sustainability footing, but also to review their standard contracts so that every time anyone asks them for a lease, they automatically get a sustainability lease in Exeter. Now that is one of the things that stands in the way of solar across the whole of the commercial property portfolio in Exeter, because there's the agency issues that are created by. So I mean that's just another example of turn the creativity on, make sure it's pointing in the right direction. And we can actually achieve a lot. That could unlock huge potential. We've also done a bunch of other stuff. We've just launched an accelerator program for Exeter, which has sourced challenges from the people of Exeter, which are all based around energy and around transport and around making the city a nicer place to be. And those challenges have gone public, and we're funding those challenges. So people who apply for grants will get £15,000 from our organisation. And we're also have funds available to make up to £200,000 equity investment in any businesses that we think are really going to make a difference in Exeter. So those challenges were launched last week. We've also just about to publish a report on energy independence for the whole of Exeter. So this is a 150-page tome which itemises all of the energy opportunities and all of the energy saving opportunities across Exeter. And it, yes, does show that it's possible for Exeter to be independent from the grid in energy terms. Now, that has in turn caused quite an interesting response from the powers that be in the energy market, because they find that quite frightening. Because you cut yourself off from national grid, that has all sorts of other consequences. As far as I'm concerned, that's good, because it makes them think, and it makes them have to engage, and it changes the power base of the conversation around supplying energy to our city. Ultimately, I see our city as being energy positive, selling energy to other parts of the UK. And we, also through the conversations that we've had, lots of businesses have decided that they're happy to give us data. So the Met Office are giving us data, Ashford's are giving us data, EDF are giving us data. Lots of companies are giving us data, mainly about how people move around in their buildings, or how energy is being used in their buildings. And this stuff is all, again, really important for helping us understand the city. But what most important about that is they're prepared to give that data up. And there's an important point to make here about data, because I've also spent a large amount of time in the city talking to people about how data, I think, can make a difference to the way the cities run. And one of the big concerns that people have is around data protection, or that this data, Big Brother somehow will use this data to make money, and I'll see nothing of it. And I think that's a very valid concern. And our approach actually is to capture that data and keep it in Exeter, not to give it to Google, get it back off Vodafone, and use it for the benefit of the people of Exeter. I think it's a very important thing. It's also a very important part of the kind of the value creating economics in a place like this. Exeter should own its own data for the benefit of the people of Exeter. Then the other question that people have asked me is, well, okay, you're doing this for energy, and you're doing this for transport, And we have a fairly large team now of approaching 30 people working on communications, analysing data in Exeter, building software to help us understand routing of traffic and things like that. Could we do it for healthcare? Could we do it for homelessness? Could we do it for crime? And when they asked me that question, I think, oh God, because it's breaking the bank just doing it for energy and transport. But really, I want people to ask me that question, because I think it really is a route to true value. And that's kind of the first step in building capability, is people saying, well, I want to be able to do that as well. But the answer isn't let me do it for you. Or, it may be if we've got enough capital to start another business in healthcare analytics. But really, I think there is enough talent, there's enough energy in this city, and there are lots of analysts now for us to be setting those challenges for other people. And I think a bit of competition in this wouldn't go awry as well. And and that's the reason why one of my most recent conversations was with Rob Bosworth about setting up a analytics apprenticeship at Exeter College, because a lot of what we need to do in analytics is not about PhDs. It's not about high-end statistical modelling. It's about collecting data and showing it to people so that they can draw conclusions, make connections, and solve problems. Actually, it's just enabling people to awaken their own awareness of how they can make a difference to the city around them. So that's what I learned last year, and as I said, this year is I hope going to be the year of examples. Be the year of examples for you, for me, so for the investors and the leaders of Exeter. I hope we're going to put up some great examples for you to look at, but I also hope that you're going to show me some examples which put me to shame. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Glenn. I'd like to invite Geoff from Pavey Group to have a few words.
On the green. That one. There you go. Cool. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Probably start with a confession for Adam. I'm an immigrant from Plymouth, and I'm absolutely, there you are. I'm absolutely delighted that there is no wall that prevented me settling in this fantastic city. Delighted to be associated with Rokk Media at this inaugural X Factor event. We've already touched on cybersecurity, which demonstrates to me that it's the hot topic. I think it's difficult to go to a networking event at the moment without cyber being on the agenda, so I'll try not to tell you something that you've heard already, but I appreciate you may well have. So I was at the Chamber of Commerce lunch a couple of weeks ago. Cosmic did an excellent presentation on cybersecurity, and I've promised Bluegrass that I would mention, and you've all seen flyers, hopefully this evening, that it's the Cybersecurity Awareness Week coming up in a couple of weeks, and Rokk Media are involved in that with other firms. It's going to be a series of seminars and clinics throughout that week, so try and book on some of those if you can. It's quite a full programme, and there's a lot of social media activity on that and a website. And then looking ahead to March, funnily enough, another networking event with cyber risk as the subject. Phil Sampson of Sampson Hall is talking at the Joint Professions Networking Group, and I'm sure there'll be many more in the coming weeks. If you don't know, we're insurance brokers, so we're talking to clients all the time about cyber amongst their other risks, and it's certainly a conversation that we're having more and more, and we're getting some traction with interest now from clients. Generally, before it won't happen to us. The tide is starting to turn because it probably already has happened to them. and it carries a big threat, as you know. So I think we're going to hear more and more about it. There's lots of statistics going around. We saw some just now. Obviously, you can check whether my stats match Amber's. I saw one that did, so that's a good start. So the year ending 31st of March 2016 showed that the UK economy was affected to the tune of £34 billion by cyber attacks. And when the data comes out for the year ending 31st of March 17, I think it's fair to assume that that'll be a higher figure. You'll see that there's a large number of firms that have been affected by a security breach, so 65%, and then 25% that have had a cyber breach of some kind at least once a month. And 3 million was the highest breach cost. I suspect that Exeter businesses in the room have suffered a cyber attack or know somebody that has been affected. And you'll see from the bottom stat, if you can see it, I know it's quite low on the screen, but 60% of businesses are compromised within a matter of minutes. The cyber criminals are very clever at what they do. So another survey suggested that 69% of businesses are treating cyber security as high priority. You'll see the stats below suggest otherwise, and it's not being taken as seriously as the top statistic suggests. We'll talk quickly about a couple of well-known breaches. For those that can remember back to 2011, Sony PlayStation were hacked and had 77 million records stolen, and there was pre-release movies released, people's private information and sensitive documents released to the public. The 250,000 cost of the breach, based on the information that's on the screen and I've just mentioned, seems a bit low. It feels like it should have been a lot higher than that. Probably more well known to you all is TalkTalk. They were hacked by a teenager. 157,000 customer accounts were hacked, although it was initially reported that all 4 million of its customers were hacked. And it was forced to admit that it had taken very little effort or steps to encrypt customer details. And the UK regulator fined them £400,000. And it was a significant cost of 60 million, and they lost allegedly 101,000 customers. Coupled with that, and we'll come on to PR in a moment, it was widely recognised that it was a PR disaster. They kept a very defensive and passive tone in its communication strategy after the breach, which just exacerbated the problem. And of course, there are many other well-known cyber attacks. So in the world of cybersecurity, size is definitely not important. Small businesses are being hacked every day. So it's simple stuff like writing down a password, opening a malicious email, or using a USB stick containing malware. Everyone's at risk, regardless of the size of the business. So my stat that matched Amber's, I think, is the one at the bottom. So the average cost between £75,000 and £311,000. That was in 2015. And a year before that, 60% of small businesses suffered a cyber security breach. I think yours mentioned 71. So that shows progress, if that's the right word. A couple of scenarios. So think about this in terms of your business. So somebody's accessed your network, installed ransomware, leaving your entire business unable to access its data files. And you think about, and they want some money to unlock the information. Think about how your business would respond to that. So I won't repeat the questions that are on the screen, but give some thought to how you would deal with that. Would you know where to start? This is an actual scenario that happened. Recruitment firm, I don't know if there's any recruitment companies in the room. There must be. It's a networking event, surely. So they had a data leak. Disgruntled employee didn't have his access rights cancelled during the leaving process, and as a result was able to leak personnel data on the social media website. They were found guilty, fined, paid damages, and they were subject of ongoing credit monitoring. Again, if that happened to your business, how would you deal with it, and could you cover the costs? AIG, rather large insurer, one of the prominent insurers in cyber insurance and any financial lines cover, issued three-year data on claims. I won't run through them, but you can read them. Financial services feature at the top, no great surprise there. They obviously have to notify customers if sensitive data is compromised. But as it says, no sector is immune from a claim, an attack. So you're a business in Exeter. What can be the impact of cyber? Pretty obvious, loss of gross profit. If you can't use your systems, you could be crippled, and therefore you may not be able to generate any profit or revenue for your business. You may have intellectual property stolen. One of the most valuable assets that you can have is data, but probably one of the most uninsured exposures. Corruption and damage of data. So you might lose contracts, transactions. It may bring your business to a standstill. Interestingly enough, the total cost of fixing a breach of 1,000 records is £34 per record. Could you afford to cover the cost of that? And goes without saying that you may have a liability to a third party, to others, because you've not protected their data in the way that they would expect, and you may be fined and you may have to pay damages and legal costs. And not surprisingly, your reputation is at risk. News of leaks spread really fast, especially in the social media age. Public confidence in your business can diminish fairly quickly. And then you've got to consider the media, customers, staff and stakeholders, and not surprisingly, a carefully managed PR response is critical, and conversely, a carelessly managed PR response is potentially fatal. So your reputation is vital. I'm sure you all know that, so why not protect it? So coming on to some things you can do. Some of these are fairly common sense. Accountability at board level is important. And then day-to-day, good practice for employees that have a responsibility for IT systems, handling data, whether that's physical or electronically held data. The pie charts below suggest that staff training is perhaps not at the forefront of the business leaders that were involved in that survey, particularly small and medium-sized businesses. So things like frequent backups and software security controls and updates are vital. So I said to Phil that I would mention him a couple of times. So as it said there, avoid overconfidence in IT. Phil, you gave me some free advice recently in terms of passwords. Put a pound sign in your password, because the majority or all of foreign keyboards do not have the pound sign on them. So that's free advice from Phil via me. I'm sure he won't mind the publicity. Okay, make sure you've got access to good advice. Lou mentioned Rokk Media. That's part of what they do, and I know it's part of what Samson Hall do. I'm not getting paid, by the way, for this. It's just, we're all Exeter businesses, and I think we should recognise where people can do very good work for others. And be aware of email scams, which you mentioned, Amber. so I'm not going to dwell on that. Use the ICO website. They're very good in terms of updates on advice on encryption and EU data protection law and how that applies in the UK. And not surprisingly, I'm going to mention cyber insurance because that's part of what we do. Interesting enough, you'll see the stats there. 50% of businesses think they have cyber cover, but in reality, only about 10% do. Hopefully, that's going to improve. Obviously, managing costs and dealing with or giving you experts to help you manage the situation. Some clients will have the cover. It's a bolt-on to things like professional indemnity cover in respect of third-party data that you hold. Some computer policies now have some virus and hacking cover thrown in, but it's fairly limited cover. There's definitely a general lack of knowledge about it. I was speaking to Chris Lorimer earlier, and he sort of echoed that thought. And you'll see there, 2/5 of businesses think they're insured, but in fact they're not covered if they have a breach. And research suggests that those companies that have the cover have either suffered a loss already, so they've already incurred costs, or they need to have it for some sort of accreditation. The danger with the latter is that perhaps accountability and management controls are not embedded in the business. So we don't say to clients, buy an insurance policy and the world will be all fine again. You've got to get the accountability and the management and the controls in place. The policy's there as a safety net at the end of it. No two businesses are the same, so it's important that we, or indeed your broker, tailors the cover to match what you need. So I'm mindful that it's 8:30 on a Thursday. Clients find it difficult to get turned on about insurance during the working day. So I'm mindful of the fact that you might not want to hear too much more about the details. So I'm going to keep this fairly headline, and some of it speaks for itself, and we've perhaps covered it already. But these are, so when we say first party, that's covering you, the policyholder, against breach costs, loss of revenue, loss of gross profit, that repair or restoration if a hacker's damaged your systems, cyber extortion, we're talking about a ransom. Somebody wants some money to give you access to your systems again, and they want you to pay some money. Crisis management, it's about how you manage it, all about PR, and making sure you've got experts in terms of IT, accountants, lawyers, managing the crisis for you. And telephone hacking, which has been mentioned, that will cover the cost of the phone calls after you've been hacked. And then there's the third-party aspect. So you're going to get fined, you're going to pay damages, legal costs because you've not protected data for clients that have entrusted you to do so. And there may be a libelous statement made on a website that's been put there, not by you, and then you get sued. So that's pretty important and can be quite expensive, as the stats earlier suggest. That's just a very quick process map of the life cycle of a cyber claim. So I'm not going to dwell on that too much because it's about speed, getting the right advice, and managing the whole process. So things to consider when you take back to your lovely office in Exeter. So what might be the cost of if you lose your sensitive data, it's lost or destroyed? What might the cost be to your business? How would it be impacted by loss or disruption to systems you rely upon? How would you fund any defence costs and awards or of damages, and how would you respond to a privacy regulation action and deal with a privacy notification cost? So with all presentations, there has to be a bit of a sales slide involved, so I make no apologies for that. If you don't know who we are, I've highlighted Exeter because that's where we are, and we are in Exeter, so I'm not allowed to mention our other offices because this is the X Factor, as you know, but we are a large independent broker and financial services company. We're in the South West Water Business Park, if you didn't know, and we would be delighted to talk to you if you need some advice. There's lots of stats on here, and we've used quite a lot of source material. It's on the slides, and I believe that they're going to be made available if you want to check up on us to make sure that they are correct. Thanks very much for listening.
Thank you, Geoff. Yeah, we'll send out Geoff's and everybody else's presentation, so except for Amber's because of compliance, but it's a bag, so you can expect that. I'd just like to thank everyone for being here tonight. I'd like to thank Event Exeter and Reed Hall for sponsoring the venue for the evening. I'd like to thank Warwick Corporate Events, who are running the AV. I've volunteered to do AV at my church every Sunday, and it never goes this well. I'd like to thank Barclays for being here and sponsoring the event. I'd like to thank Pavey Group, Bitpod, who are filming the event as well. And most of all, I'd like to thank everyone for being here, because without you, we'd have a pretty boring event, I think. And Amber, if we can do a business card. We're doing a business card draw for lunch for 2 here at Reed Hall.
I'll try.
Amber doesn't have a card in here, by the
No,
way.
I don't have a card in here either, so this is all legit. All right, so Julia?
Julia from Travel Counsellor. We can carry on networking. I think we've got the room for about another hour or so. There's also a cash bar just where the drinks were before, and obviously Adam wants to say
Can I just say a
something.
quick word? You may have highlighted that Llewellyn has it's not a birthmark, and it's not his love of, nor is it his love of lager. He's actually a rugby player as well at the weekend. So what you're seeing here is, I'm guessing, one of those trophy wounds that you get for. I'd also like to thank Llewellyn, because, to be fair, this was his idea. The name, the X Factor, putting all this event together. I can get up and make jokes, and I actually love Plymouth, Geoff. I was there at the weekend. The truth is, it was all down to Llewellyn. So can we just give a round of applause to Llewellyn? Thank you for coming, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you.
Thank you.